I think one of the biggest decisions that I made early on was back in 2017, I was actually working on two potential business ideas at the same time. They were in very different spaces, and I got to a point where I needed to decide which path I was going to go down. So at the time, one product was, a software idea. So in a space where I knew a lot about the vertical, but not a lot about the execution of developing a software tool. And the other was in a space that I knew a lot about and I had the ability to execute because of my past experiences. And so at that point, the business that I decided to work on was PrepDeck, which was ultimately a direct-to-consumer brand based around a product that I invented. But at the time, I was working on it. I was toying with ideas. We were in prototype. We started to explore, I say we, but it was just me at the time, started to explore the patentability of the product. And then I just got to the point where it was like, I need to decide which one of these I'm going to spend all of my time on, where I'm going to deploy the capital, and where is the highest likelihood of success for me. Because at the time, it really was just me. So, I made that decision. That was a life-changing decision. And I think it highlights the need to really focus because it's impossible to do too many different things, especially at that 0 to 1 stage of a startup. And it got me to Shark Tank. Yes. I'm not sure whether it's a belief that I outgrew, but it's certainly something that I've learned over time, which is that the people that you bring into your organization, more often than not, and especially if you've hired well, should know more about their particular specialty than you. And so as a leader, it's a little bit of letting go. It's a little bit of letting the team speak first. It's a little bit of hearing their ideas out, adding value to those ideas, but not always coming in with the exact solution. It might be directionally the way we want to go. And so I think like in the early days of my career, I would come guns blazing. I would have not only the direction, but here's how we're going to execute it, and I need you to go and do it. Whereas now it's a little bit of like, this is the direction we're going and why. And I think the why is really important. I would say like from the very first year of being a founder to now, the biggest mindset change for me has been just the sheer amount of resilience you need in order to get through things. So I think like emotionally, when things don't work or the plan didn't come together correctly, or you invested in an area that didn't work out, those things don't hurt as much now. And they are far more considered as just the contributing factors to the end goal rather than, taking hits along the way. I think I now know they are inevitable. You cannot bat at 1,000. You are going to have to take swings. Not every swing is going to be a home run. Some might be singles, some are going to be strikes, and they just don't hurt as much anymore. I think that resilience has built up quite a lot, and that allows you to think more broadly, to understand that it is simply or potentially a bet, a strategic bet, a direction you want to go. But, to quote Jeff Bezos, ideally, if it's a door we can walk back through, if it's not working out, we walk through the door, we make the decision. If it didn't work out, we can come straight back through that door. It's not a one-way door. Then I think that's a big change in how I think about things in the business. I think as a founder or growing startups, like you just hit a lot of walls all the time. You can make a hire that doesn't work out. You can try to rehire for that role and it doesn't work out again. You could bet on a vertical channel and try to push a distribution down there, and that might not work out. And I think it's important to celebrate the wins. That's one way that when you hit a wall, it doesn't feel as intense or as damaging as maybe it would be if you were just constantly focused on what wasn't working. So you've really got to focus on what is working. If you do that, it's inevitable that some things won't work. I mean, probably more things won't work than ones that do, and you need the ones that do to really outweigh the ones that don't. And so part of that is figuring out when to put the foot on the gas, right? And people will use the term scale. When do I scale that thing that's working? That might be as simple as figure out a vertical that's working, and instead of one salesperson in it, you add another salesperson. And so it's like you're slowly but surely putting more fuel on the fire. In direct-to-consumer e-commerce, that's building out and growing your ad campaigns on tools or tactics that are working or channels that are working. But you got to hit the walls. You got to figure out which ones are not going to work. Otherwise, you're just not doing enough things and you'll have no chance of finding the next one. The reason you need to do that is you also don't know when the ones that are working are eventually going to stop working or work less or cost more money or the market shifts or things change. So just get used to having to deal with the fact that things are not going to work.
Yeah, it's a
So in my last company, actually in any of the companies that I had either built or operated or founded over the last decade and a half, we would access and use global talent in many different ways. So whether it was a contractor that we found or a project that we needed completed through Upwork, or it was hiring a dev agency in Argentina or a customer support agency in the Philippines, across those businesses we were accessing global talent. We never had the stability and the consistency that I would like to have seen in those teams, so that contractors maybe not available again next time, or certain challenges we experienced in the Philippines included a really big disproportion between what the agencies were charging us to help us with the team members over there and what the team members were earning. That felt wrong to me. We had quality issues, we had infrastructure issues like stability of internet connection and availability, and I fundamentally had this belief that had built up over time, which was that the best people on the planet don't work at 2 a.m. in the morning. And that led me to Mexico, Central and South America. In my last organization, we started to explore what it would look like if we had some of our team members based in Mexico. We made our first hire there, which at the time was quite intimidating, but ultimately worked out very well. We found that we were able to hire someone equally skilled, probably even more highly skilled than someone we had in that position in the United States, but we were able to do it for more than 2/3 less cost. And that really opened my mind to the fact that, wow, there is really extremely high quality individuals in this Latin American market. And then there are all these other advantages exist, like the time zone alignment is critical. So they're working 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. just like we are in the United States. And they have rich experience in every different type of business at every level and across many different vertices with fully bilingual talent. And in my last organization, we started to make more and more of our team hires based in Mexico and Central America. It proved to be a phenomenal leverage point for the business. It helped us maintain profitability. It helped us, be able to hire when maybe we would not have been able to hire if those positions had to be in the US, and we didn't have to sacrifice. So I basically said to myself, this is an incredible leverage point. It's been incredibly valuable to me as a founder. I want to build this out and take this to businesses across the United States, because I believe that if we do it correctly, if we make it as easy to hire someone in Central or South America as it would be if you were to hire in the US, that is an amazing leverage point for business. And if we do it right, it's a win-win-win. It's a win for the organization. It's a win for the team member in Latin America because they're getting paid, at or above market and benefits, etc. They're working for amazing growth-orientated US organizations, and then we can make it a win for our organization. And we put a lot of different things in the business model that I would call founder first. So I really built this with the mindset of what would me and my network want to see out of a service and an offer, and how do we do it in a way that keeps costs reasonable and makes it a very value add. So this company was really founded first by scratching our own itch in our organization. We built a way to do it internally, and then we spun that out and now have built Talent Group into the organization it is today. There's still a lot of misconceptions about hiring globally or hiring in Latin America. I think the first is that if they're not in America, they can't be as good as an American. And that's just an absolute misconception. I mean, there's good talent in America, there's great talent in America, and the same goes for Latin America. The reality is there's like for like, equally skilled, equally experienced, equally educated, equally fluent in English, talent in nearly every role and every vertical you could imagine. As long as the role can be remote we guarantee there's going to be candidates who are going to knock your socks off across a range of different roles. I think another misperception is probably a trust factor. So if they're not in America, how can I trust them? And our experience and what we see across organizations is just like it would be if you were hiring in the US. You still need to be smart and intelligent and secure about the way you run your business. And at the end of the day, you're always trusting someone. You're trusting them, whether they're sitting next to you in the office, whether they are remote in the United States, or whether they're remote in Latin America. So we have some processes to help companies get through that: background checks, reference checks, identification checks, all those sort of things. But at the end of the day, it doesn't make a difference whether someone is based in Mexico or Argentina from a trust point of view relative to what they would be like in the US, especially if you're using a partner like TLNT Group who's going to help you make those decisions quickly and securely. I think another misperception or misconception is just the quality of English. So it's like if they're in Central South America, like, there's going to be a huge language barrier there. That's not the case. Millions of high quality knowledge-based workers are educated in English, fluent and completely bilingual. And so that misperception is definitely an easy one to overcome. And then I think there's just like the management misperception. How do you manage someone in another country? And that's probably the most important one for an organization to ultimately get through. And if you are managing remote team members anywhere in the US, it's going to be exactly the same. If you're making your first remote hire in the organization and they're going to be in Central or South America, you have a learning curve to learn how to manage team members remotely. And we would just say, we're here to help support some of those learnings, and there's, a lot of resources there as well. But really, people need the same things they need if they're sitting next to you. They need structure, they need guidance, they need empowerment, they need training and education, they need to be a part of the organization, they need to be motivated. None of those things change in a remote environment. You're just doing it through Zoom and Slack instead of having them potentially sit next to you in the office. So SpinHire was actually a product or a service that was created by demand from our customers. So basically, a year and a half into TLNT, we started to have clients come to us and say, listen, we love what you've done for us in Latin America. You're really good at talent acquisition and understanding our business and meeting those needs. Can you help us with our US position? Because we have, obviously a part of our team in the US. And I said, I don't know. I think it's possible, but I'm not sure. And so what we wanted to do was, I've actually wanted to solve this problem for a long time. I have a real issue with the traditional recruiting model where companies, and this comes from my experience as a founder and an operator, really feels like you only have two choices when you're looking to hire someone. You either DIY it and do it yourself, and you post a job ad and you pray that in those first 2 weeks that you have the job ad up, somewhere in that pile of hay is the needle you've been looking for. And it's very time consuming. It's the least costly, but it's very time consuming, it's draining, and it's uncertain. Or you get professional help. You use a professional recruiter or recruiting organization, and there's this huge delta in how that pricing model works. So they charge the recruiter tax, like 20, 25, or 30% of the salary, which for most organizations is incredibly expensive. I mean, you're talking about like $25, $30, $40, $50,000 for regular positions in an organization, not like a CEO executive search, just like a regular position. So we said, if we're going to do this, we need to build a business model and a solution that aligns with what an organization actually needs. So we built SpinHire. We've got multiple different options in there. So we have a flat rate pricing model where we'll place any hire up to $150,000 a year for $6,990, which completely aligns our incentives with that of our client. And basically, over time, we built a system that allows us to provide organizations with headhunting, with full management of their recruitment process without breaking the bank. And so that business is very focused on helping companies access and hire high quality talent with professional recruiting and headhunting support, hire high quality talent without having to do the post and pray and manage things internally. Yeah, Talent Group is what I like to say is we're like a tool in the business toolbox. So right now we have two solutions: Talent, which helps organizations access and hire world-class remote team members in Mexico, Central and South America. And we have Spin Hire, which is a full end-to-end solution, including outbound headhunting for US-based roles without breaking the bank. And so we're there when companies need us, and we're an amazing solution to help companies access and find the best quality talent they're looking for. I think the decision at Talent to set up the organization the way I have is probably the proudest decision I have in the business. Like, when I founded this organization, I was very, very intentional from day one to do two things. Number one was to let the market tell us what they want and then lean into that and grow the organization based on what the market demand is. The second decision that I made was that the business was not going to be entirely dependent on me. So as we've built up our team, we've very intentionally hired really highly talented individuals, and they are empowered to run and grow the organization in their individual departments. And that has been a game changer. And I think that's come from, maybe time as a founder or growth or that sort of thing. But those two things together have set the organization up very well. Last 10 to 15 years, I've built a really wonderful network of business owners and operators and, friends and colleagues in the space. So when I launched Talent Group and I shared with them the vision and what we were accomplishing here, and I showed them the early example of what we had done at PrepDeck with our team, I think they understood quite quickly what the potential was, and they were willing to trust me because I had built that trust over time to show them what this new and amazing leverage benefit could look like for their organization. So I think I used that capital that I had acquired over many years of being a valuable partner to them, to have them trust us in the early days, build those initial case studies, and then, from there we've been able to grow through referrals and, marketing and just, market growth as well.